Good day, high school freshmen. You're one day closer to high school, to being done at South Hills Middle School. Hopefully, you're enjoying this time. Hopefully, you're enjoying this work on equations that we're doing today. We're going to be doing some more on equations. It builds on what we've done in the past. So if you haven't done the last couple of days, go in and work on those. It'll help you get ready for today's assignment. As always, you can pause, repeat, skip ahead, do what you need to get ready for today's assignment. So with that, let's get rid of me, and here we go. The time is yours. That's a pretty small me. Okay, on these equations, you'll see a little more complication, a little more complex, a little more problem solving needed to solve them. Just think of this absolute value part of the equation. You can think of it as a variable that we want to isolate. We first of all want to get this part on its own on one side of the equal sign, and then it's just a problem like you've done the past couple days. So as you're looking through these problems and looking at the ways of doing it and how complex is it, well, the added step or the added level of complexity is needing to get the absolute value all on its own. And then upon doing that, then we can solve it. So here we go. For example, I'm going to start with 2 and then I'll go back to 1. If we add 4 to both sides, you end up with the 2 negative 9b is 108. We always say to write every step, and so you can write every step. I'm just saving a little bit of time. I won't write a ton of that. When you divide both sides by 2, you end up with negative 9b is 54. Again, you can write the divide by 2 and divide by 2. Use your calculator as you need, please. I'm just wanting to see if I can get this video to be under 10 minutes. Once you have the negative 9b, that absolute value being 54, you know that either the negative 9b is 54, or you know that the negative of that is 54, because then the absolute value will get rid of the negative. So the negative of that is 54. And so often we just divide both sides by the negative 1 and just write it like this. Negative 54. Once we have that both of those are a solution to this equation, we can divide this by negative 9 and get negative 6. And over here, divide this by negative 9 and get positive 6. And then you can go ahead and check your work. You can put 6 back in here. Negative 9 times 6 is negative 54. The absolute value of that is 54. So those are the two solutions for that equation. Likewise, over here, this 5, it's a positive 5. So if you subtract 5 from both sides, you end up with 4 absolute values of that equals, minus the 5 off there, use your calculator to get 96. Then divide by 4, so the absolute value of negative 4p is, let's see, what is that? 24. Once you have the absolute value isolated, you know that either this is 24 or the negative of that is 24. So negative 4p is 24, or the negative of that is 24. And again, we like to just move the negative over, if you remember. And then we just solve for it. Divide both sides by negative 4, so p is either negative 6. Divide both sides by negative 4, or p is positive 6. Those are the two possibilities. Now, don't be confused as you're getting, oh, it's just whatever the answer is and the negative of it. That doesn't always happen. That's not always what occurs. Let's come down to number 8. Yes, it's happening here as we're giving you some simpler problems. On number 8, this is a positive 5, when you subtract 5 from both sides, negative 2 of that absolute value is negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 2. And you end up with the absolute value of r plus 9 is 1. So either r plus 9 is 1, or the negative of that is 1. And again, we like to just divide both sides by the negative 1, negative, so that r plus 9 can be negative 1. Those are the two possibilities. Now subtract 9 from this side, and r can be negative 8. Over here, subtract 9 from this side. And whoa, r becomes negative 10. So those are the two answers that can work. It's not just an answer and then it's negative. And you can know that because in here, once you're inside the absolute value, if you've got a plus or a minus in there, what you're doing is you're putting these numbers on either side of that 9. Negative 8. If I have negative 8 plus 9, that answer is a 1. And if that negative 10 is there, negative 10 plus 9 is a negative 1. I'm checking my work. You can see that either of those is going to give me absolute value being 1. So 5 minus the 2 times 1. Either way is going to get me the answer of 3. So don't just think it's always going to be, a number and then it's negative. Okay, here's why I weighted on number 1. First of all, add 1 to both sides. Use your calculator if you need, negative 89 plus 1, if you're not sure which direction on the number line that goes. You're left with negative 88. And then to get this absolute value by itself, you divide by 8. So that you have the absolute value, negative 5 plus m, negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 11. At that point, you can stop. Just like in math, we can't divide by 0. We can't take an absolute value of something and get a negative number. There's just things in math we just, in our system and the way we've defined it, that don't happen. We don't get absolute values and get a negative number. There is no solution to that. There's no number you can put in place of m to make the absolute value of this equal to negative 11. If you ever isolate the absolute value and it's equal to a negative number, the answer is no solution. No solution. There's nothing you can put in there. There's nothing you can do to that m. Nothing you can accomplish to make it negative because this absolute value overrides it, makes it impossible. So as you go through these, you're going to need a couple of these where there is going to be no solution. So don't be surprised if on some of these you end up with no solution when you work through the problem. And you can work through it and take a look and see why that is and how that occurs. All right. As I look through these, what's one I can work on? Which one should I do that maybe is a little more complex? Number 11. If you add 10 to both sides and then divide by the negative 1, you have x over 5 is 1. Let's do those 2 steps pretty quickly. You know, you can set this equal to 1 now, or the negative of that is 1, or the negative of that. Either of those could be inside that absolute value. So you move the negative over, divide by negative 1, and one of these twos are the answers. Times this by 5, so x can be 5. Times this by 5, so x can be negative 5. And maybe let's try 13. Looks a little complex when we add 9 to both sides. And suddenly it's not so complex. Divide both sides by 10, so the absolute value here is 1. R minus 9 is 1, or the negative of that is 1. Divide by the negative, so those are the two possibilities. So you add 9, R can be 10. Add 9 over here, R can be 8. There you go. Work through those. Let's see, if you want to work through 12, you can minus the 1 over here. Get the 2. Divide by 3, you're at 2/3. Let's work it through. Minus 1, so that 3 of these equals 2. Divide both sides by the 3, so that the absolute value 2/3. So then either the n divided by 3 is 2/3, or the negative of that is 2/3. And then we like to divide by the negative quickly. negative 2/3. Okay, so to get n by itself here, it times both sides by 3. So n can be 2. And over here, it times both sides by 3. N can be negative 2. Don't be what's the word, overwhelmed. Don't be frustrated if you get negative, if you get fractions. They're there. They're in math. They're going to hit you. They'll hit you for as long as you're doing math in school. There's a few that we've done. Do a few more if you need, if you'd like. Hope you do well on the quiz today. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.